Right, so welcome back, and well, as the title says, this is a pretty straightforward video. What I have in front of me is, well, a parcel containing roughly 8 micro four thirds devices, meaning cameras and lenses, which I purchased recently off eBay. Now I say roughly because some of them are working, some of them not, but let's get into it and dive in and see what we have. Now what we have here is a rather nasty looking G1, a Panasonic Lumix G1. Another Panasonic Lumix G1. This one is a bit cleaner, at least, because somebody tried to clean off this paint. An interesting looking Lumix Olympus EP1, which is rather nice, but we'll get to this one as well. Another Olympus EPL3, nice enough looking, not perfect, a few scratches on the screen, but yeah, it's decent enough. Not one, but rather two Lumix 14 to 45 millimeter kit lenses, which are looking pretty good, and well, two more lenses, an Olympus 14 to 42 first generation micro four thirds collapsible lens, and let me just open it up. Yeah, and another 14 to 42, this time a second generation lens, 14 to 42 second variant, this time a bit rough around the edges, so it's looking pretty bad. But another issue with it is that it's broken off, so we'll get to each and every piece in a second. Let me just put the box away and present the whole package, as it were. Let me just put the G1s further in the back because you can see them better. Here we have the EP1 and the EPL3. Now the lenses, the Lumix 14 to 45, both of them. And here we have the 14 to 42, and well, the 14 to 42 Juico, the Olympus variant, which is broken. Now I paid for all this lot. I won the bid on eBay for about 150 pounds or so. Sad to say though, this let's start with the Olympus 14 to 42. So this was attached to the camera, but in an interesting manner. So you only had this this rim, this outer rim, attached to the camera like so, and fixed in place and inside the micro four thirds mount of the camera. Now at first I was a bit taken aback. I thought I had really lucked out with this one, meaning that the whole mount was broken off the camera, but actually then I figured out that it was only the lens, which is better in my opinion, because this 14 to 42 is not really a very desirable kit lens. It's plastic fantastic all the way and doesn't really hold a candle to the Lumix 14 to 45. I believe what happened was somebody from the customs tried to open up this camera and didn't really know how to do it, and ended up breaking this thing in the process, because from the photos of the seller, when the bidding started, this thing was still intact in one piece. So somebody broke it off, I suspect, during the transportation, or rather the customs check process. So I told this to the seller, and I explained that this time around they didn't really offer a correct, sufficiently protected packaging, and wouldn't you know it, he agreed to refund me. I calculated the equivalent of 1/8 of the whole parcel, meaning that if I were to split the sum, the amount of money spent on these 8 gadgets, one of them being 100% defective and broken off, he agreed to pay me £20, which was my proposal. And maybe I could have gotten more out of him, but I wanted to play it correctly and play it by the book, and not be the one to take advantage of a seller when a parcel doesn't arrive in the correct way. Plus, this thing was supposed to be defective, this lot, so yeah, I believe the whole business ran well, and I am pleased with the results, and kudos to the seller for stepping up and owning to any issues that might arrive from the packaging and so on. So yeah, let me just pause the clip and try to remove this lens mount from the camera and go on with the next piece. So I managed to clumsily detach the lens from the EPL3, that's defective 14 to 42. Now moving on to the camera itself. So surprise, surprise, this one was actually functioning. Well, all 4 of them are actually functioning, so I will spare you the suspense. Suffice it to say that I had to purchase batteries for these 2, the EP1 and the EPL3, but I actually knew beforehand they were functioning because I have a spare EP battery somewhere lying around from a previous camera, so I just managed to check the cameras and to see whether they are functioning, and it's worth purchasing additional batteries. So I spent about €8 or £6, or rather $10 roughly, for 1 battery for each of these cameras. Now this EP1 is looking exquisite considering the price point, just a few minor scuffs, but sadly the optical image stabilization, the internal IBIS is defective, known fault for this model of camera. And also there's a few dots, black pixels on the LCD, nothing too bothersome, but still not a perfect example. This, however, the EPL3 is looking a bit rough around the edges. You can barely see it, but there is some. Let me just try to focus and bring the lighting closer. You can see the lacquer is peeling and a few scuffs on the bottom, but no hits, and actually in perfect working order. A few scratches on the LCD screen, but still a good find. Now the G1s, actually, these are looking very disgusting, but this is a characteristic of the multi-layer paint on these cameras. So you can see they're grimy, dirty, they have a slimy texture to them. They can be easily cleaned. Well, it takes a lot of time, but it's straightforward enough, so I might be doing that after all, and try to sell them, of course, for a profit. I managed to test them, and it's interesting to see I have rarely found an unfunctioning, defective Lumix G1. One thing interesting to note, these are the first 2 Micro Four Thirds cameras from Olympus and Panasonic, and the EP1 is actually one of the best looking and best feeling Micro Four Thirds cameras out there, and it's a rather nice example with metal finish and so on. And the Lumix G1, even though its ergonomics are top-notch, this is plastic fantastic all the way. It's grimy, slimy. If you clear the paint, if you clean it off the body, it leaves an interesting patina to it, but it will never be pristine. The best looking early Micro Four Thirds and one of the worst looking early Micro Four Thirds. You have these two in contrast, the Olympus and the Panasonic. Now for the lens, I bought these. I checked this 14 to 42, and it's a functioning lens. It doesn't have optical image stabilization, and it's plastic fantastic all the way. So it creaks and rattles and actually makes a funny noise when you connect it, when it tries to focus. Let me just show you this. So you can hear that focus engine working, and it's not a pleasant. Let me just share with the microphone. Yeah, it's not a pleasant sound, but it works well enough. So yeah, I'll just shut the camera off and put the lens here and switch to the 14 to 45 Lumix lenses. Now these are one of the best lenses out there, and I've mentioned this before, and it seems Panasonic knew how to invest in R&D in the beginning and wanted to make the lenses feel as premium as possible, possibly given the fact that the Micro Four Thirds ecosystem was in its infancy and they wanted to gather much interest and much support. So you can feel the premium quality oozing out of these cameras. Now I know they're not much in today's world. They don't offer electronic zoom, so just manual, but you can feel the quality and the attention to detail, especially considering this metal mount for the Micro Four Thirds. So yeah, this was never replicated in their subsequent replacements. The Lumix 14 to 42, both the first and the second generation ones, are known to be plastic fantastic, to be of a lower quality both in terms of performance and feel to them. So these are both working, and I have big plans for them. Actually, they had some internal dust, but I managed to remove the top lens of them and clean them up fairly easily. And you can see there, well, they're not 100% perfect, but near enough for my price point. So the bottom line is I paid around £140 for this lot. However, with taxes and so on, I reached about £200, which is not bad considering all these cameras and lenses work except for this defective one. So in total, I got 7 working cameras and lenses for £200, which is not bad. I had to purchase additional batteries, but I considered that a small price to pay given the fact that I received some money back, and also this defective lens will basically cover the price for the 2 batteries for the Olympus cameras. Now, why I decided to purchase the batteries, well, that's just my instinct, my seller instinct. I figured these 2 are worth more with the batteries. But for the Lumix G1s, I can barely ask bottom basement bargain prices. So these are about 30 euros in my mind. So I will be selling these for 30 euros each, or about 25 pounds. So we have 50 pounds here, or 60 euros. For these 2, I plan to get around, I don't know, 70 euros for this EP1 and 80 euros for the EPL3. For the Lumix lenses, I'm going to sell these rather expensive with a big profit attached to them. So I plan to get 120 euros for each of these lenses. And for this Olympus Juico 14 to 42. I plan to get 70 euros. So you have 140 euros, 170 euros, 240 euros. With 120 euros, we're looking at about 360 euros, which roughly translates to about, I don't know, 320 pounds or so. So basically, I'm trying to double my investment with all these cameras and lenses. Now, it remains to be seen whether I can do this or not, and in one of my future videos, I plan to compare these Lumix 14 to 45 kit lenses and dedicate a whole episode on these, because they are, quite frankly, the most modular and best value Micro Four Thirds cameras out there. Not that there are many options, but this basically is the Swiss Army knife of Micro Four Thirds lenses. But I'll get to that in a future video. Until then, remember, I buy, hoard and collect useless and obsolete tech stuff, but sometimes I get good quality cameras and lenses for exquisite prices, so you don't have to. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.